Ladies and gentlemen, my name's Paul, hope you're having an amazing day. We're going to dedicate the majority of this video to Intel's Battlemage and Celestial GPU architectures, as well as some disclosures too from Intel regarding their CPUs, because some of this stuff is really exciting. But I want to begin with AMD's Fluid Motion Frames technology. Now, I'm sure the majority of you at this point will be aware of things like upscaling and of course also frame generation. And Nvidia of course really drew first blood with frame generation with DLSS 3 and the RTX 40 series of GPUs. Since then, AMD have launched FSR 3, but in the case of, let's say, DLSS 3, one of the problems with it is that it requires game developer buy-in, i.e. a developer basically has to go in and manually implement DLSS 3 into the game's code. Now, this is not as bad as very early implementations of DLSS, because game engines now offer plugins, and I am simplifying this whole thing, but ultimately, it still requires a developer somewhere or another to do something, although in some cases, of course, mods also are available for many titles. But AMD wished to release AFMF, or again, AMD Fluid Motion Frames technology. Now, what's really cool about this is not only does it not require developer buy-in, again, because it's done via the drivers, but this technology, in theory, will work together with Radeon Super Resolution. And so what this could basically mean is that you can run it for essentially all DirectX 11 as well as DirectX 12 games. Now, to that end, Aaron Steinman, who is an AMD employee, he is actually a senior manager over the Radeon product group at AMD, said, I think we're going to start seeing, DLSS is only available on certain solutions. So either Nvidia has to go to have the benefit from our solution because we make it open source and cross-vendor, or they're going to probably need to do something similar, end quote. Now, to be fair to Nvidia, and I actually created a video regarding this, they do have NIS, or NVIDIA Image Scaler. Now, AMD too have their own thing in the drivers, but basically this is a spatial solution. NVIDIA did do some improvements to it, but ultimately it is not as advanced as something like this. Now, personally speaking, I don't think NVIDIA are going to just, use the open source variant. Maybe I'm wrong, but I suspect NVIDIA will do their own thing. Now, a source quite a while ago, I think it was actually even before the RTX 40 series launched, they told me that eventually DLSS 3 would, DLSS, not DLSS 3, DLSS would have kind of a driver-wide implementation. Frankly, I've heard absolutely nothing more regarding this, and I don't know how technically it would be possible for Nvidia to do this, but it would be very logical if they can to do that, because, it's Nvidia, and Nvidia tend to like their own solutions, let's just be honest. So now let's hop, skip, and jump our way over to Intel. As I'm sure the majority of you are aware, later this year we're going to see Intel launch Battlemage, and of course there have been a lot of questions to how Battlemage is coming up, and also whether Intel are in this for the long haul with Celestial onwards. Now, of course, I did quite a while back leak a roadmap from Intel, and of course you can see it on screen with the timings for the various different products from the company for GPUs. And the company have also, of course, disclosed there will be at least 4 architectures. There's probably 5, so we have Alchemist, which we're currently on, Battlemage, which again is going to come out later this year, then Celestial, and then we have Druid. But there's a very interesting interview, and I'm going to link it in the video description. It is a conversation that Tom Peterson had with the chaps over at PC World, and this was during CES. So, it's coming! He's super excited about it. Then this is, of course, regarding Battlemage. All I'll say right now is all our engineers, you know how they kind of constantly doing engineering things. I'd say about 30% of our engineers are working on Battlemage, mostly on the software side of things, because the hardware team is now on the next thing, which is Celestial. So think about it as the Battlemage has gone first in the labs, which is very exciting, and there's also more good news coming, which I can't quite talk about right now. Then he basically implies that he's hoping that he's going to be able to talk about it before the next CES, which of course is going to be early next year. Now, I have already leaked that yes, when it comes to Battlemage, it is now being brought up in the lab and they are actually working on the drivers. So yes, Intel are definitely, doing quite well. You can see another slide that I leaked quite a bit ago regarding Battlemage and the next generation memory subsystem, etc, etc, etc. It's going to be very interesting, quite honestly, to see the marketing regarding Battlemage, because Intel ARC, the first generation, for example, the A750, it kind of launched, honestly, needing another couple of months in the cooker. Mostly the problem with the architecture essentially was drivers, as the majority of people watching this probably know. And DirectX, I think it was DirectX 9, 10, as well as 11, but 11 wasn't quite as prevalent an issue. Basically, DirectX 12 games were a lot more consistent in their performance, but again, older games like using DX9, well, yeah, the performance was all over the place. Now, with a lot of driver updates, Intel have done quite a lot of work in just basically fixing those issues, but, of course, it's very, very, very difficult to put out a GPU architecture, because not only do you have to worry about actually making a good product, but it's also about things like actually, the drivers, the software, the ecosystem, plus also balancing all of this in the minds of gamers and actually getting a good positive PR message out there. I also want to add just another quote, and this is actually, again, from the same interview, but the medium term is game-enabled AI. This, by the way, is regarding the NPU. So imagine that it's for AI of character manipulation or character animation enhancement. I think the greater implementation of AI than we have seen yet is animation augmentation. There's a lot of not so good animation in games today, no judgment, but imagine that you put in AI and it feels relatively crappy animations, you get lifelike human animations, and that's free. You are welcome, Epic. End quote. Now, we've seen a lot of work already from Nvidia regarding this with the Avatar Cloud Engine. There's been some updates regarding that. I want to go through them and probably put out a video in the next several days on that. But ultimately, AI is not just going to be for the purposes of making, art from the perspective of the developer, but it is going to be implemented into games to just make things more realistic, to have better interactivity with characters, etc, etc, etc. Now, I also want to mention to you guys that there are some leaks actually for Intel and the Intel Lunar Lake iGPUs. Now, it's not extensive in terms of the leak, and I'll give credit here to WCCF Tech for this discovery. Well, actually, the initial discovery was made by Momomo on Twitter, but then I found it again via WCCF Tech, and they've also done a pretty nice job of compiling a Sandra a GPU processing benchmark and basically comparing them all together with an Intel Lunar Lake engineering sample. That's 64 execution units running up to 1.8 gigahertz, and you can see I'm going to round up the scores for everyone's sanity. Okay, mostly what little bit I've got of my own, and we're getting around 1930. And then if we compare that to, let's say, Meteor Lake with 128 execution units running at 2 gigahertz, then we're looking at 1530. And of course, going down to Meteor Lake 64 execution unit variant, then we're looking at around 923. So in essence, doubling, Intel's Meteor Lake going up to Lunar Lake with the same number of execution units. Obviously, there are some architectural differences, and saying some is putting it very mildly. We're looking at around 2 times the performance increase. And this brings us back to an official disclosure. Specifically, this happened during Intel's, CES event. And basically, they showed off a package, And what we have on the screen right now is basically the package of the chip. And at the bottom, you can see essentially the DRAM packaging, and then you have the main chip, and basically on the top right-hand corner, as far as I'm aware anyway, that is a dummy die. So this is actually really interesting. It's a memory on package design, and it's coupled with low power DDR5. I think it's running at 8533, so that's a significantly higher increase in clock frequency over Meteor Lake. And it's actually quite interesting because many of the architecture... And it's actually quite interesting because there are a lot of architectural similarities between Arrow as well as Lunar Lake. I'm not going to get into all of them in this video, maybe I will in a future one. But one of the primary differences, other than the fact that, well, one is obviously designed for, ultra low power solutions, for example, and one of course can be scaled all the way up to high performance desktop, is there is also a difference in the iGPUs as well. So basically, Arrow Lake is still going to be leveraging the first generation of XE-LPG. So that's basically the same architecture as what we have with Intel's Meteor Lake. Meanwhile, Lunar Lake, as I mentioned with the performance leak just a moment ago, that is going to be based upon Intel's Battlemage. So it's going to be very interesting to see how this actually fares. Obviously, at the end of the day, there is a lot of folks out there who do not want to spend ridiculous amounts of cash on a, let's say a laptop or something like that, which has the equivalent of like a high-end RTX graphics card in it. So a solution like this, which is capable of running, reasonably decent levels of detail in games with, of course, something like 1080p output, that is absolutely fine for the majority of people. And it's going to be extremely interesting to see how this fares on the market versus the various AMD solutions that we've spoken about quite substantially. I also received a leak from a source in regards to the performance figures that we're going to be expecting of Lunar Lake versus Meteor Lake. So I was told that we can be seeing over a 40% improvement in multi-thread performance with Lunar Lake versus Meteor Lake U, and of course that is across a couple of different benchmarks. Specifically, one of the tests I was told was Cinebench, but there was also Geekbench as well. And just to give you guys an exact bit of information here, that was a 4+4 Lunar Lake configuration versus a 2+8 Meteor Lake. So again, with that configuration, we're looking at a 40% improvement multi-thread across the different applications. With that said, guys, I think that's just about it for this particular video. Hopefully you have enjoyed it. This is not the video I was intending to do today. I was actually planning to make another one. Unfortunately, I was getting a bit of conflicting information from a couple of different people, so I'm holding off on that video because, well, I'm trying to get some more clarity. So hopefully I can. With that said, take care of yourselves, stay safe, bye for now.